Hey everybody, welcome back to another YouTube video. This is RCB, aka Rocket Catchin' Bob, and today I wanted to go through probably 4 or 5 tickers to really show you how to know if it's a dip buy or it's not. So let's just kind of start at the top. Let's kind of get a good idea of what we have going on here. So Chris is a great example of something that, you know, it made a nice move. It spiked all the way up from 11s all the way to 17s. Actually, it came from 9s all the way to 17, and it's actually held its gains and continues to consolidate in this area. If you look here, you can kind of chart this. I think the best thing for you to do to determine if things are dip buys or not is to always be drawing the lines. And if you don't know where to draw those, you know, you're just going to have to practice. It comes with a lot of screen time to be able to kind of see these things and look for areas that, you know, it's kind of touched or being really close to, but can't really get over. And in this chart, the example here, it would say 1650s is pretty much that area. As you can see, it kind of touches here. Second time, it gets close on the third. The fourth, it actually does touch again, and so on. And then on the bottom, you look for the supports. You see how it's touched 1, 2 times there. That's going to be your bottom line. And you're also thinking, hey, I'm looking for whole psychological numbers. That way, it's kind of like reinforced psychologically along with the technicals that are actually there for you. So this is a little bit tougher to decide if this is a dip buy or not, because there's so much consolidation. It's more in like a channel. The best thing about this is it's kind of grinding upward. As you can see, like here. Again, you'll start getting comfortable with these lines as you kind of, you know, get more and more time in front of your screen and get an idea. So if you were trying to buy a dip, you just want to make sure you're buying it really close to the support zones, because if for some reason you buy, let's say you bought 1630s way up here, and it comes back down to support, you're probably going to be a little afraid. Like, hey, man, I'm down. I'm red. You know, I'd rather just get out of this play than stay in it. And that's all because of not being patient. So being patient will lead to better executions, better entries, and less emotions to deal with. So try to get this a little closer to the bottoms, maybe 16, which is like a whole number, psychological number. And knowing that 1650s is kind of your breakout point that you want to see. So again, very hard to see if it's a dip buy or not, but mostly looking at this, you're just going to have to take, you know, risk to reward, take a smart guess at it. And if you're wrong, if you buy 16s and it breaks below in 1590s or 1580s here, which is your trend line, then just cut it, move on, wait for the next play. If you really want to be aggressive about it, you can risk $15 here. But personally, with this uptrend kind of going on, I wouldn't really, you know, I would keep it tight, you know, be a little smart about that. So this one's a little tougher to see. Let's go to another and see if we can see a better idea. All right, so EYES is kind of the number 2 gainer right now, and this is something I made money on earlier today. So I want you guys to see something. If you look in pre-market on EYES, it had a lot of trouble here in this area at about 636, right? So you know later on, if it does get a push, this would probably be where it has trouble again. So in order for me to kind of get a good idea if this is a dip buy or not, let's look at this. It opened, it dropped down, and then it spiked back up to VWAP. It then dropped back down a little lower, so it had a lower low, and then it tried to pop up again. So in this regard, since it's below VWAP, and the trend is downward like this, it's not a dip buy for me. Just because it's in a downward trend, it looks more bearish, and I feel like it looks weak. There's no volume down here. That kind of can check it off your list that right now is not the time, okay? So later, it actually does get a reversal. It breaks out of this wedge, and as soon as it does kind of get this pop here, you see how there's a volume candle here? That kind of gives you a hint that maybe, just maybe, it's worth watching. But until it gets over this VWAP, I'm not super interested in it. I want to kind of like let it do its thing and just kind of wait a little bit longer. So we see that it actually gets some higher lows, comes back up, another higher low, and now it's back above VWAP. I like to use VWAP as a bullish to bearish indicator. So now we've went from bullish because we were over VWAP in pre-market, we became bearish, and now here we are back again. We're back over that VWAP, and we're back to bullish. So if you look at it here, I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, here's some wicks that I've seen. Let's just go from this one and give you a good idea. Kind of, this is what we're looking at, right? So we do see this uptrend, and it kind of starts breaking down under this uptrend, but then it holds. Level 2 is like saying, okay, well, there's some stronger support here at VWAP, and this is personally where I took a shot at it, saying, you know, I want to see some more volume come in and it to bounce back up. If we break below, you know, a certain threshold, whether it be like right here at 584, something like that, then I'm just going to cut my loss and be gone. But in this regard, it did work out for me, and we did actually make that push, and I'm glad that I did buy it because obviously we were able to take some profits into the 630s. And then if you look back here, funny enough, here's your consolidation of higher days that you couldn't get through, right? So we take that, let's just say it was, what is this, like 636, and draw it across. Look how crazy it is that it actually pretty much matches up with this. So example number 1, we got your dip buy. You went and you tested high a day resistance. It breaks through. You got to be scaling into this. You got to take some profit, right? Now, for the people who didn't get into it, they're saying to themselves, you know, waiting for a dip, what should I do? How should I know when the next dip is? Well, personally, to me, this play from down here at 6s to all the way to the 680s to $7 range is all one play. I like to break it up in my head like, hey, you know what? That's all one play. I'm going to wait for another pattern to set up and see if it stays bullish enough to take another entry. So I kind of take, again, this wick down here and draw it across to the other wick to say, hey, here's an uptrend that I would like to see hold. And then if it does, I can take another entry on the bullish breakout, which in this regard could have been if it would have actually broken, say, this area. But because consolidation happened and this couldn't hold this uptrend and it broke down here, for me, it's a total reset. Meaning, let's wait for another bullish play. Until then, this is bearish to me again. Even though it's above VWAP, it pretty much has had a pattern here of like an ascending triangle look, but failed to hold it. So let's just wait for the next one. So I break this up to every single ticker in increments throughout the day. So again, if you look back, you see how this was a resistance to begin with. If you guys are really hesitant, having problems trying to find the dips and where to get in at, use previous resistances to try to find the next support zone. So if you look back over here later, it actually hits the 630s area, 635s, and you can take another shot at it. Take some entry on it, you see consolidation, and you say to yourself, worst case scenario, you know, it doesn't hold 630s, I have to get out. But if it does bounce back up, then we should see, you know, a nice push, right? A nice squeeze, because some of these guys are, you know, some bears who have taken some shorts in this area saying, hey, this is going to break this uptrend, and now they're going on the other side. You have to understand that bears are also looking for great entries and looking for supports to break down so they can, you know, profit into the sell-offs. So here we go again. It bounces back up. Maybe it took this, took this dip buy because the previous resistance that is now becoming support. And I mean, this is really a great example, because later on you're kind of back in the situation again where, hey, is it going, you know, hopefully that, you know, if you missed the dip buy down here for, you know, safer buys, hopefully you're not like, okay, well, now I'm up here at 675, closer to the $7 resistance. Do I buy it or not? You guys got to be buying when people are selling. You got to be buying during consolidation zones near supports. You want to be watching level 2 to look for bigger bidders, constant bidders that continue to come in. And just, I mean, there's so many different pieces to this, so it's really hard for me to put in one video. But kind of, you look at this, it almost looks like it's here, actually. And I draw it from this wick to actually the third wick up here, because just, you know, there's an uptrend. It held here, it wicked upward. It bounced higher, it actually wicked again, and it held again, and it tried to push this 730s, but then it couldn't hold. So again, here is more of a bearish signal. Hey, we're going to reset. We're going to go back into a different pattern. Every time you see this thing breaking an uptrend, such as this, I'm not looking for the dip buy anymore. I'm just looking for the next setup. I'm waiting for it. Is it going to make another ascending triangle? Is it going to kind of continue in this downtrend? Which, here, let me show you an example here too. It could have been like this. You could draw a line here. But when you see this rounding out and curling back up, such as this, I just move my trend line just like so, back over to this next wick here. You know what I mean? I try to get myself more transparency of where the stock might be going. Gives me a better idea. I'm always moving my lines around. I'm just trying to figure out what people might be doing, engaging it the best way I can. And on this example, you'll see it does get higher lows. It gets closer to that support range again from 630s. It starts hitting at 650s instead. And then you see this downtrend that actually continues to happen. And in this regard, here we go again, right? So we have this breakdown at 660s where the trend's not holding. And now we're going to break down. So it's not going to be a dip buy because why? Because we broke this trend, this pattern. It's just bearish. There's overhead resistance. All the people who have tried to buy in previous consolidation zones like this. Oh. Let me try to do that again. Hold on. Everyone who's bought in this like little lull of just trying to figure out, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is now underwater. And now what happens is that whole thing is going to turn more into a resistance zone. So if you look here about, as soon as we broke right here at 660s. Now this is going to be your resistance, and you don't really want it because why? You're below VWAP. There's lower volume. The trend broke downward. There's not really another setup saying that it is bullish. So it continues. So not really interested in buying the dip below the VWAP with low volume and on a downtrend, right? I hope this really helps you kind of formulate how to buy dips or knowing when to buy dips and when not to. We'll look at another example here. This will probably be a longer video, but I think you guys will really appreciate it. LHDX, there's a lot of things here to really take in consideration. LHDX was the #1 gainer for the day when we opened up today. If you look back here, we actually were making a nice push for 722s, and that was pre-market. But when we opened up and the bell hit, you saw this big red wicked candle, right? That's not a good sign. Usually at open, not a good sign, especially if it tried to be a green candle and it just gets shut down. If you look further, you get another one. And so on. Like, you just keep getting them. Every time you get this big push up or anything that goes well for it, it tries to make a move positively in a bullish manner. Like, it tried to break this VWAP, right? Like, we were underneath it just like the previous ticker. We actually spiked back up, and maybe you wanted to buy a dip here, but this candle here with a big volume to the downside can be a hint to be like, hey, look, I'm just going to pass on that. Let me just sit out and see if this can set up with something else, because that candle is tough, okay? It goes on, red candles, more red candles, and when you see things like this, you can just tell, hey, it's bad price action, it's weak, and you just don't want to be a part of them. You got to be careful. Watch those candles, watch the price action, watch level 2. So many clues on this chart that say to me, hey, even if it did become bullish at any moment, I feel like, it could just be broken right back down, unfortunately. And that's just, kind of sad. If you look back left, you'll see how there was a lot of consolidation in this area and some resistance that was pushed up. Well, if you drag around kind of like this, you'll see that this becomes a resistance. You see what I'm saying? That's why charting is so important. It'll help you so much. It'll give you all the information you need. And I know it's a little hindsight 2020, and it's really hard to, say this in real time, of course, because I mean, there were people who were playing this, and I said, hey, I wouldn't play it. I don't like this or that or this. I did try to take a shot at it, but whenever it pretty much got this big red candle, and it continued to go, more bearish, the VWAP coming down like this, I mean, this just was so tough. So, again, below VWAP, consolidating or downtrending under VWAP. Don't even mess with it. Not a dip buy. Gonna let it do its thing. I like things like EYES, where they have, fought themselves above VWAP and they've consolidated above VWAP and set up nice patterns to be or to stay bullish on the day and continue fighting. Let's see. Do I have another one? RMED. Here's a great example because this is a little bit more of a mixture. We had a great open. RMED goes from $4 all the way to 602s, right? We're kind of consolidating above the VWAP and we're trying to hold it, and we keep on kind of pushing back above it. So I've drawn a line across here basically saying, hey, this is that trend line. I want to see it hold. And if it doesn't hold this trend line, then I'm probably just going to bounce. So you have horizontal resistance around $6 that continues to act as resistance. And then you have this upward trend line that you're hoping that kind of continues. So if you are buying anything as far as dips or anything close to the trend lines, you know that if it breaks under this, you're probably just going to bounce out of it. So of course it does later break this line about 550s, consolidates under the line and VWAP. So very bearish here. And again, you see more of this downtrend. I mean, this is pretty harsh, unfortunately, but you see there's a double top up here at 637. That's a bearish reversal trend, right? If you guys don't know about that, look up double tops. That's a bearish pattern. Then you have just straight up downtrend under VWAP. You don't want to be a part of it. No reason to dip buy. Another thing that was a hint here on RMED, which you guys can take as a golden nugget today, that maybe you guys don't know this. On the daily chart, anytime you see this blue line, which is for me the 200 SMA, you see how it comes across here? On the daily, this is huge resistance. It is super, super hard to get over that line on the daily. 99% of the time, I've always seen it kind of get rejected here, or I've seen it actually have to fight very hard and set up like an ascending triangle, some kind of wedge, or either, trap the bears in some way and then get back over it. So always keep in mind that you are going to have a war at that 200 SMA on the daily. A great nugget for you guys. All right, lastly, let's go to IHT. Actually drew like a little vampire on it because it was so ruthless today. So I hope you guys like my vampire pattern. If you guys watched this far and you're actually paying attention and you're learning something here, drop in the comments what you think about the vampire pattern. Let's kind of go over this from the beginning. IHT, again, this is just like the last one. We spiked at the open. We consolidated it with horizontal resistance. We actually had more of like this uptrend. Let me see if I can draw it. So kind of like this uptrend, right? You got a wick here, matched it to the second. It actually kind of wicks here on the third. And we push this area of $7.60 and we break out. And then you actually consolidate again. You could dip buy here, and the reason is, you see how this kind of comes as low as this? Previous resistance was 765. So if you weren't a part of this, or you didn't buy, say, this breakout, or anywhere on this uptrend, right? Then your goal is to get in as close as you can to this previous breakout slash resistance slash support now, right? So if you get an 802, which is a whole number psychological, and you risk off 760s, you're risking, almost, I think, 7.5%, which is a lot. But if you're right, you still got another push all the way from $8 to $8.60. Really, it's a 60 cent. It's a 1-for-1 risk reward right there, and it's a little tough. But obviously, you'd be looking for like 920s instead of 860s because you want to see this squeeze and just go break 9s. And it's truly, this was possible. It was a little hard of a risk to reward, but when you see this big red candle basically was an ascending triangle or like a consolidation breakout, and it ends up being this big kill candle just like this, I'm not dip buying anymore. I'm just going to let it go because here it is again, big volume candle, big red candle with a wick at the top. Reversal. Everybody who is bought in this area, let me try to do it right this time without resetting the whole chart, is saying to themselves, let me just sit out. Let me go find a different play. Let me see what else is going on in the market. And of course, this kind of comes down, consolidates, drops down further, and it just gets really choppy. It doesn't really do much. And then you kind of see it, try to do it a few more times where here's kind of one where it kind of consolidated, it tried to break out, and then they reversed it back down again. It consolidates, it breaks out, right? And then it tries to break out here on this candle, and then of course it breaks down again. Guess what? Does it again. Consolidates, breaks up, consolidates, breaks up, and you keep seeing this price action. Use your previous price action to determine the future of what is going to happen with the stock. I mean, this goes on and on. I could really just bore you and make this a super long video and be like, well, look at it. It does it again. It does it again. I just want you guys to see this. So anytime you see big red candles like this, understand that it's not really going to be a big, not going to be a dip buy. You want things to be above VWAP. You want to see an uptrend above the VWAP. Like, yes, you can make money on things under VWAP, but in this current market, the conditions are that things are having a really hard time. And it's just really tough out there. So be careful with your dip buys. Make sure you're, looking for some trend lines to base off of. And if anything, look for previous resistance to become your current support that you can utilize that and try to make some money on if you guys are having trouble with this. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you learned something, leave us a like or a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. If you guys didn't know this, we are live Monday through Friday on Twitch TV/RocketCatchingBob, where we live day trade. We show all our entries, our exits, and we pretty much tell everybody exactly what's going on with the plays. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Come check us out on Twitch. We'd love to have you. We'll see you over there.